course, spectators are allowed into the circuit around here, and I'm not sure if you have to pay, but there are a smattering of fans in the grandstand, getting a great view. Had a lot of action into. Everyone has set a lap so far of the 9 teams that are running today, but the tyres are going to be soft, medium, hard, with about a 30-second explanation for what type of compound it actually is.
Indeed. Force India looks... Racing Point. Looks good. It's really nice, actually, watching the cars in this early morning light. Just trying to see the guys as they take their first tentative steps out on track, and as they start to lean on the car. Always good, I think, watching under braking, the quick change direction down here at 1 and 2, watching the car on its nose through there is always great. Then you've got this long sweeper up through 3. That's great to see the rear stability of the car when you're at full tilt going through that long right-hander up the hill. This part of the track, again, rear stability through 4 and then down, braking into 5, looking if there's any understeer at all, trying to get that car turned in at the pointy end. Then this part, for me, I think is the most enjoyable to watch a car in testing. It's the quick change of direction up the hill, flat out, if they can, through 9. Again, that's a really great point to see how together the car is. And then you've just got the sort of the wiggly bit at the end. But it's a great track. We have so much data from the years of running here, and yet we just keep coming back. And we keep coming back for a reason, that it is a great place to test a Formula 1 car, to really figure out if it's on its numbers. Yeah, you see there, a little change direction.
And this part of the track altered a few years ago to try and promote overtaking. It isn't always the overtaking fest here, but as you say, Will, it is a supreme examination of the team capability, what their work from the sort of start of June as Vettel slows to the middle, checks the wing mirrors that dart out a very long way on that Ferrari.
Well, they've had to move them outboard this year, and they have to be, I believe, secured at 2 separate points, which has allowed teams to design a lot of sort of winglets and sort of aero flicks coming off them. I think that Red Bull are the only team that have actually got vanes attached to the wing mirror itself. It's got sort of a wing mirror within a box, providing a little bit of downforce. Renault certainly have a strafe that comes off the side pod that attaches the wing mirror laterally, and then you've got a piece underneath that attaches it to the top of the side pod, similar to what Red Bull ran last year. But Red Bull certainly the only ones, I believe, at the moment with the wing mirror inside a box. Whether that's legal or not, we don't know. Obviously, that will...
I think it will become pretty apparent.
Now, here's an interesting thing. When you look down the start-finish straight, when you look at any of the straights, when the DRS is open, that cavity, much larger than we've seen. And again, that's a new regulation for this year. Should be a much more effective DRS with that larger rear wing on the cars.
Yeah, the new wings, the most obvious difference that we are seeing. The front wing is 200 millimeters wider. The rear wing is 20 millimeters higher and 100 millimeters wider.
100 millimeters wider?
Yeah, at the back, which is why you will see as we perfect time to have a look at this. Just juts out slightly further than
DRS.
No, he's not going to accommodate that for the time being. So Perez taking it down to turn 10, another corner that's been remodelled over the years. This circuit originally built for the Olympic Games of 1992. They had cycling events here, and they've changed a few corners down the years. We can see the fantastic detail on the rear wing of that Racing Point, which is what I am going to call it for this morning, until told otherwise. Now, let's go to the, I mentioned the regulations changing there. Let's look at what has changed for 2019.
Racing and more overtaking. The key change is a move to a simplified front wing with standardized end plates, wider dimensions, and no upper flaps. This will encourage aerodynamicists to direct more of the flow to the underbody, where it is less sensitive to the disturbed wake of the car in front than the outer body. The deletion of the upper flaps at the outboard ends of the wing will make it impossible to create the vortices that are created by the current highly complex end plates. This will force the teams into a different aero philosophy that should make it easier for drivers to follow the car ahead closely. Limiting the teams to 2 underwing straights on each side should further help in this respect. Another area of the car that will see changes in 2019 is the brake ducts. Winglets mounted on the brake ducts currently play a part in directing airflow to the outer part of the car. These are banned as from 2019, as are blown axles, which currently use air directed out of the center of the wheel to energize the flow down the outer surfaces of the bodywork further back. Barge boards will be lowered by 150mm to make them less powerful in directing the airflow, whilst also being moved forwards by 100mm to make them less sensitive to the airflow being disturbed from the car in front. The rear wing end plates, meanwhile, will also be simplified, with teams no longer permitted to use horizontal gills. These equalize the pressure between the inner and outer faces of the end plate to give a faster flow over the top of the wing for more downforce. But they introduce an extra disturbance to the wake, which worsens the performance of the car behind. The DRS opening, meanwhile, will be increased from 65mm to 85mm. Together with an increase in width and height of the wing, this will make the DRS around 25 to 30% more powerful, so as to allow it to be effective on those circuits with too short a straight for the current system. With the rear wing set to get both taller and wider, Formula One cars are set to look quite different from the current models in 2019.
That was very useful. I like that.
I enjoyed that. I was just trying to find out where I put my microphone.
And it's just as you got all your stats right. Well done, sir. Well done.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness
Thank
indeed.
goodness.
Yes. So what they were saying, and one of the interesting things, the blown front axle. Now a lot of teams have turned up and they've got holes drilled in the rims/nuts. There's a lot of trickery going on in the front wheels, and it's going to be fascinating to see what is and what is not legal. The interesting thing on a day like today is, as folks at home will see, whenever a car comes back into the pits, the car is hastily pushed back into the garage and the doors closed and the curtains pulled across in front because nobody wants anybody to see the cars. But as soon as they go out on track, spy photographers are around taking photographs of every car from every conceivable angle, and they will all be being sent back to every team's base, which will be poured over to every minute detail, every team looking at what everybody else has done. And one of those big things, and one of the things that we could see protested once we get to Australia, is around that front wheel area and what's going on with front axle blowing. I think that's going to be fascinating.
Always remember it in years gone by when you'd get up in the middle of the night if you were a British viewer. You'd watch the race.
Yep.
And then this is early internet days, and then you'd check. You maybe watch the end of the rerun if you're a complete nerd like I was and am. And then at the end they were like, after the race, Mika Salo was disqualified. At the very end, like batteries not included.
Yeah.
Always get a disqualification, or always seem to get a disqualification because of that exact reason, because everyone's pushing it to the absolute limit. Once there's a precedent set, they're all looking for the loopholes. They're all looking for the ways that... it's very interesting. Like, I think in other sports, you would call it potentially cheating. This is just the heritage of the sport, finding the advantage where others cannot.
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier on, Brawn and the double diffuser.
Yeah, it's finding that loophole.
It's finding the grey area and it's exploiting it. If you're wondering why we haven't seen as much from the pit lane today, it's because of these giant screens, which are banned for the season normally, but are not banned for testing down there at Red Bull.
Everybody trying to keep everything secret, and as we were saying, as soon as they get out on track, obviously that disappears. Now, Max has done one lap, and I wonder...
That's a very good point.
I wonder if there is an issue with the power unit, or if it's just part of the run plan. There doesn't appear to be much panic, or any sort of busy work going on in the garage, so perhaps it's just run plan waiting for the track to rubber in a little bit. Maybe they're so confident with the package they're not going to bother going out until there's a little bit more rubber down on track and they can actually, a bit of grip, and they can put some competitive times on. Talking about competitive times, Vettel still sits top on a 1 minute 20.9 9.20, not far off back marker pace actually from
It's around it, isn't
Grand Prix
it?
weekend.
It's
Brighton.
around 21 laps till
9.45.
Vettel's thing.
Yes, Seb with twice as many laps as Kimi in second. Perez third, Sainz fourth, Hulkenberg fifth, Bottas sixth, and those are the only drivers with times on the board.
So it's, I think, the one thing that everyone was struck by when Red Bull had their shakedown in a special launch livery was how tightly packaged the rear of that car was, almost non-existent side pods. So the pressure for Honda of joining Red Bull up from Toro Rosso, first time since we mentioned Super